Welcome back to another Tuesday Talk with Deanna. I am so excited. I wasn't here last week. I was actually in Montana, but we are back and I am stoked. I hear a little bit of feedback. I was actually in Montana. What am I hearing? I wonder if it is. I hear a little bit of feedback. I was actually in Montana. What? It's a lot of feedback. And I'm like, I don't have anything on. Do you have anything on over there? Do you have your sound on? No? I wonder if it. We've got some technical difficulty. Anyhow, while we figure out what might be happening with the sound, I'm like, I think I shut all my browsers. Normally I have a million browsers up, but I just shut them, trying to figure out what it might be. Let me see something. All right, wait. Can you? No, it's still there. All my browsers. Bear with us. This is one of the things that happen when we go live, right? We just never know what may be causing feedback. All right, is that any better? It's like really delayed too. Let's see. I'm trying to switch my settings, but I am not sure. I know I'm quiet. I have every browser closed. Are we good? All right. It looks like I don't know what just happened. I switched like every setting imaginable that I've never switched before, but whatever it is, it's working. So now I can introduce my guest, Nathalie Gregg, or Nathalie. I always want to call you Nathalia, and I don't know why. I say it in my head, so I apologize because your name is so important. But Nathalie Gregg, and she's a powerhouse, man. Let me just tell you, she is an executive business consultant, a motivational speaker, an adjunct professor. She empowers and teaches and mentors the next generation of leaders. And she is the host of a Twitter space called Lead Loudly, which I have been honored to be a guest on, I believe twice. So, yes. And it's such an honor to do that. But how are you doing today? And thank you for putting up with all the
I am great. I first had the technical difficulties, so I'm like, okay, we can breathe now. Here we are.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. You always look like on point. And I know the last time that we talked, you were like, oh, I don't like really going live. You like the Twitter space because
yes,
it's just the voice, right? But I mean, you are gorgeous. I'd be going live every single day if I looked like you. You're just so pretty.
Oh my goodness. They just don't watch me from the hip down. I just back from the dog park.
You're too funny. So Nathalie, can you tell us a little bit about you and what you are about?
Absolutely. I consider myself to be an educator by trade and an entrepreneur by design. And I step into this light for women's empowerment, to inspire women to be bold, confident, and fearless. And those are the actions behind the hashtag Lead Loudly, which consider the battle cry for how I define women's empowerment. Because so many times we as women, we play small and we have so many things to offer. And I just feel like that it's part of my mission, part of my soapbox, part of my cheerleading cry that to get women out on the playing field so that we can support each other and so that we can accomplish whatever it is that we desire to do. Because I am really adamant about women being their own economic engines, whether they work for someone else or they have their own business, or they have some type of hybrid where they are collecting and receiving multiple streams of income. That's what I call the pinnacle of being an economic engine.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think that women, we do tend to play small.
Yes.
We get in our own way, but that's my
Yes.
thought. And before we talk about that and about what playing small means, what are some mistakes that you see women making that keep us playing small? And then I'm going
Right.
to ask you about how we change it. Like, how do we get out of that playing small space and get into the big space? But before I
Sure.
do that, I want to talk about your Lead Loudly
Hmm.
Twitter space. Now, how long have you been on the space? Because you've had that Twitter chat and
Yes,
you've been on
we've been
Twitter
on the
forever.
space since July consistently. I actually did a hybrid for March for Women's History Month. And so I invited some of my previous guests from the Lead Loudly Twitter chat to actually do the space. My executive
Okay.
coach has been urging me, for lack of a better word, to adopt more audio. I love Twitter. I love Twitter chats because it Twitter plays like I play. It's fast and furious. And so it is. I
That was
always
one
say
of my
that.
questions for you.
That's what I love about that platform. And so as my executive coach continued to kind of nudge me toward the audio piece, that's when Twitter Space became an option for me. I was an early adopter. I got Twitter spaces immediately when it actually rolled out. And I said, okay, this is an option to
That's
actually
awesome
be on this
because
platform and to continue courageous conversations about women.
I that's great because I know not everybody was able to get a Twitter space when it first rolled out. They were
Right.
only giving them to a few people. So that
Yes.
says a lot about the audience that you've built up about Lead Loudly. So with your Lead Loudly Twitter space,
Hmm.
what is that about? Who should attend that?
Anyone who wants to live bold, confident, and fearless. But my target audience is women, and I'm grateful that we have a number of men that continue to show up because I always say to my female counterparts, it's not about us or them, it's us and them. Because when we
Right.
talk about mentorship and sponsorship and allyship, it's so important that we have our male counterparts as part of our internal as well as external teams.
So what made you decide that you wanted to do this with
The
Lead
Twitter
Loudly?
chat,
And yeah, like first off, how long have you been on Twitter? Because I know it's been a while. Do you know how long you've been on there?
it's probably, if I had to guess, it's probably been about maybe 12 years. And a
Wow. Okay.
gentleman, yes, a gentleman by the name of Glenn Gilmore approached me doing a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and he was actually one of the speakers. It was a 3-day workshop on how to build your business on social media. And they had flown Glenn in as one of the experts. And he said to me, you need to be on Twitter. Because at that time, I was mostly on Facebook and LinkedIn
Okay.
because actually I went to introduce myself to the director that was running the workshop, and he said, "Oh, I know who you are. You're leading in stilettos." And he grabbed me and hugged me, and I was just standing there like when Wile E. Coyote caught the Roadrunner. I was like, "Oh, you know who I am? Oh, okay." And he
Oh
said,
my gosh.
would you like to hang out with my team and do social media for us for the event for the next 3 days? I was like, absolutely. So that's kind of
Wow.
where it started. And I had several conversations with Glenn Gilmore, who is one of the experts that they had flown in. And he said to me, you need to be on Twitter. And I said, talking about what? And because at that time, most people were talking about what I had for lunch, what I had for dinner, da 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 da. And I'm like, that's not me. He said, talk about what you always talk about, and that's leadership with the concentration in women, young professionals, and economic development.
Wow, and that's
And
what you've
so,
been doing.
I said, okay, here we go.
And Lead
And so
Loudly was born.
yes, yes, and so I was actually in Starbucks one day, talking with 2 of my interns, and we were talking about, okay, what's next? What does it need to, for lack of a better word, sound like? And this kind of developed into the 3 V's of personal branding that I talk about all the time. And one of my interns said lead, and the other one said loudly, and I said we're putting it together and forming our own word, lead loudly.
Oh my gosh, I never knew how that came to be.
That's how that came to be. A lot of my aha moments and things that changed the trajectory of what I'm doing, for lack of a better word, have happened at Starbucks and in coffee shops.
Isn't that funny? Like, things come to us at the strangest time. I get
Oh,
these
absolutely.
crazy ideas in the shower, and
Yes.
I don't know, in the shower, it's like
Hmm.
it's quiet,
Yes.
it's like, you're not thinking about anything, and then that's when I have these aha moments. It's like, "Okay,
Hmm.
what about this?" And then sometimes I forget. By the time I'm out of the shower, I completely forget, and I remember it later. I
Right.
try to remember,
Exactly. Exactly.
right?
But that's so critical, Deanna. Finding those quiet time and those times that serve you
Yeah,
as the person behind the brand and behind the business, because that does help you go forward and keeps you from playing small,
yeah.
because you do need that time for reflection, and you do need that time to say what if, and you do need that time to kind of think about, who do I need to get involved for my next, because my next level is going to cost me something different than where I am presently.
Oh, isn't that the truth? That I'm gonna hold on to that
Okay.
comment, and we're gonna
Sure.
get to that, like, later, because I
Mhm.
feel that statement. But let's first talk about playing small.
Mhm.
Uh, what are some common mistakes that you see, and we'll say women, although we know they can fall with men as well too, but I think
Sure.
women, we are wired different. Men
That's
and
true.
women are wired completely different, and I
Mhm.
think we are more likely to play small. Is that a right assumption?
I think it's I won't say right, but it is something that happens.
Okay. So what are some mistakes that you see being made and that keep business people playing small in life and in business?
I'm going to revert back to one of my previous Twitter chats where Stephanie Callahan was one of our hosts, and one of our guests, excuse me, and she was talking about head trash, about how
Mm.
to eliminate head trash. And she was phenomenal. She talked about imposter syndrome, and she talked about the over 20 pieces. And I was like, really? There's so many things to imposter syndrome. But that head trash, that what we tell ourselves, because I do believe one of the the important conversations that we have on a daily basis is consistently what we tell ourselves, and especially as women. A lot of my work has to do around sex segregated play. That at 3 years old, you give a woman a doll and she plays in isolation. At 3 years
Oh,
old, the boys, they play team related sports from day one. Fast
that's
forward when
interesting.
we
I've
come
not
into
heard
the
that before.
marketplace. Yes, we have not, as females, most of us have not been socialized unless we play sports, or unless we're a cheerleader, or unless we do something that where it demands more than one person.
That is interesting. So from a young age, we are
Mhm.
taught just to stay within ourselves, where boys are learning how to create teams, how to
Exactly.
think together, how to be
Yes.
strategic.
Yes. how to lead
Wow, I just
teams,
had, like, this
how to
aha
fail
moment, I've never
forward.
thought about that.
Yes, how to fail forward. Mhm.
Interesting. Now my mind the wheels are turning because 'cause I'm like, "Okay, so what does that say for an only child?" But I guess it would be the same thing. It does. Is there a difference? And I'm thinking out loud right now, where when you've got siblings, you learn a little bit about that because you have to learn to play together and share together and whatever, but then your friends are something different. But then an only child, it's almost like even more so. I don't know. Is there a study? Do you have any information on that, or am I just jumping all over the place?
I don't have any information, but I am an only,
Oh, I
and,
did not know that.
and I spent a huge amount of time with my father, because my mother was an educator and my father was an entrepreneur, and that's why I say that I'm the combination of both.
Okay, yeah, I could see
Because
that.
I do both, and I spent an insane amount of time with my dad because I attended my first Chamber of Commerce board meeting at 5 years old. And I noticed even at that age, Deanna, there was not one woman in the room.
You're kidding
And
me.
no, no.
Wow.
And so when I accepted the Athena Award from the Greater Columbia Chamber of Commerce in '03, I saw my president kind of cringe when I said my acceptance speech because I talked about my first experience at 5 years old and now my experience as being a board member at 30. Not much has changed.
Oh, I bet they did cringe.
Oh,
But you
yes.
see that a lot. You do see
Mhm.
that quite a
Yes,
bit.
yes. That's why I was so thrilled and tweeted and celebrated you being the president of your Toastmasters Club. That is totally huge
Thank
because you
you.
are mentoring and mirroring women to do that, to know that they can do it, that they don't have to say that this is not an option for me. Yes, this is because Deanna done it and she's showing us how to do it as well.
Well, thank you for that. I'll be
Absolutely.
really transparent. I have no idea what I'm doing, and
That's
I'm learning as I go along, but
Yes.
so far, it has been an amazing experience, and I know that you are a speaker as well,
Mhm.
and a motivator. And I think we've talked about Toastmasters a little bit. Like, I was
Yes.
terrified to join Toastmasters. I had been invited several times before,
Mhm.
and I said no. When I lived in Ohio, I said no. When I moved to Florida, I said yes. And the only reason that I said yes was because I didn't know anybody and I
Right.
didn't care if they judged me. But let's talk
Mhm.
imposter syndrome, right? That you were mentioning that Stephanie had talked about. Was
Right.
it
Mhm.
Stephanie? Okay.
Yes, Stephanie
Uh,
Callahan. Mhm.
and boy, imposter syndrome got me big time with that. I was so intimidated. And then I was invited to be part of their accelerated Toastmasters. And I've only been with Toastmasters, I think this is my year. I think this month makes 1 year.
Oh,
So
that's
yesterday,
phenomenal.
thank you. So yesterday I had my Toastmasters for the accelerated,
Mhm.
and we had to give a presentation, another speech, right? This is part of a speech craft, which is like
Right.
a group that, okay. So I had to give my speech, and I actually did it on the power of words. So,
Very
not thinking
nice.
about what we were going to be talking about today,
Mhm.
but I am
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I love this conversation," because imposter syndrome and the words that we tell ourselves every day, multiple times a day,
Yes.
really impact us, and they do create our reality and what's around us. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, we tend to tell ourselves more negative things than positive things. And I love what you added to that by saying, as children, boys are playing with friends and groups, and a little girl by the age of 3 is given a doll and plays in isolation, and
Yes.
I am so curious to learn more about that and how
Mhm.
that really does set us on different paths. I think
Yes.
that's like an aha. I'm gonna keep talking about that because I never thought about it before. That's
Mhm.
awesome. That's
And
awesome.
that's some of the work, and I wanna give, Dr. Linda Austin, from South Carolina a shout out for that because that's some of her previous work that, that she has been, putting out there and continuing to make discoveries about is the sex segregated play.
Yes. Yeah, and I wanna do that too. If you connect me to her
Absolutely.
Twitter
I would
page,
I would
because
be more than happy to.
I'll add her link as well into
Sure.
the notes, so that if anybody else is curious about learning more about that like I am, you can follow
Mhm.
her as well.
Yes,
So,
yes.
how do we stop playing small in life and in business?
One of the things you just said a couple of minutes ago is about which the thing play is so important to me. And I believe that if we look at what we played as a child, if you are aligned with your passion, your mission, your vision, whatever it is that you want to call it, it should be a close representation. I am doing exactly what I played as a child. I mean, to the T. I mean, I had all female Barbies. They sat around the Barbie camper table and they planned events. Seriously.
Did you really? I'm
Yes, they
thinking back
planned
to my
events for the
childhood.
community. They did, all sorts of things. So if you look at that, and this is one of the pieces where I want to continue to grow in as far as my leadership piece and my executive coaching and helping women dig deeper into that because that's where the gems and that's where the true authenticity lies. you know
Interesting. So, I'm gonna
yeah,
tell you
women's
what I used to
empowerment has
do as a
always been a
kid.
part of my trajectory. I just called it something different.
As a kid, I did not like dolls. Now, my mom would always buy me dolls because
Mhm.
she was born in Italy, and my
Oh, how beautiful.
grandfather, was always away and serving in the war and was in Venezuela while she was growing up, and so when she did get a doll, she wasn't allowed to really play with the doll. It
Oh,
went up on a
wow.
shelf, and
Mhm.
it stayed there so that it stayed nice, right?
Yes.
So when she
Mhm.
had me, she bought me a ton of dolls, and I had no desire to play with dolls. I had more
Wow.
fun playing outside, climbing trees, but I will tell you that I liked organizing things. And this is
See?
gonna be kind of funny, and if my parents are watching, I know they're both laughing if they watch it on the replay. They'll probably comment on here, go, "Yes, you did, girl. Yes, you did." Because we planned a carnival in our backyard. Now, my
Oh,
friends and
how
I wanted to
fun.
go to Cedar Point, right, which was an amusement park on Lake Erie. And so
Mhm.
it was the summer. We all wanted to go. And my dad had said, "Well, you have to pay for yourself. Like, I'm not paying for this," because we wanted all of us to go. So I think I was 12 at the time. So I'm like, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to get whatever it was, $30, right? Where am I going to come up with $30? Like, so we decided to have a carnival in our backyard. And
Mhm.
we donated all of our somewhat used toys and created games, and we decided to use our Florida room as a concession stand where they open the window and then we just serve, right, food out the
Mhm.
window. And then I came up with the idea of let's give some of the money to a girl that was in our school district, but much older than us. Like, we were 12, she was a senior. She was in a terrible accident and became
Oh,
paralyzed. We're
wow.
like, what if we gave the
Oh.
money to her and her family? and we'll just give her enough. Like, we'll take to get the money to get us into Cedar Point, and we'll give her the extra.
Mhm.
Well, let me tell you what happened. It backfired. Kind of backfired. It didn't. It was a lesson.
Mhm.
The media caught wind of it. So it went out to 3 counties on the newspaper, the TV. It was my first radio interview.
Mhm.
Wholesalers were donating prizes and food, and people were dropping things off at our house. It turned into a huge event where we ended up giving her all of the money because we felt guilty, and then we were back at square
Sure.
one, right? But my dad did say, "Well, I'll take all of you guys to Cedar Point, and we can never get the dates
Yay!
together." We never went. We never went. Like, as kids, we could never figure out a
Oh,
day that we could all go, so we didn't go. But that carnival was like the highlight of that summer, and I still have the news clippings. So looking at that,
no!
the
Yes.
reason I share all that is because even though I didn't do the doll thing, or
Right.
I probably played more with the boys than the girls, I did have my girlfriends there though,
Mhm.
but I did like to organize and plan things just like I'm doing now, which is
Absolutely.
funny.
Entrepreneurship, there was a problem, you provided a solution.
Kinda. I tried.
It exactly, and it worked. It did work.
It
You
did work. It
actually
did work.
provided an amazing resource for that young lady and her family.
Yes. Well, what's funny is that, and I don't remember how much money we raised. I mean, it may have been under 500, but for us, that was huge.
Oh,
That was a ton of
absolutely.
money. And I remember them sending a card or thanking us, and
Mhm.
they were using the money to go to Disney. And the 12-year-old girl in me was mad. I was
Oh, I'm
pissed
sure.
because I'm like, I just want to go to Cedar Point.
Right.
I can't get there. And they're going to Disney,
Exactly.
but
Mhm.
it's a fun memory. It is a fun memory,
Yes.
and I laugh about it now, but yeah. It was an interesting time.
Mhm.
So, what else can we do to get out of that small space?
I think it's also, Deanna, consciously making a decision. Making a decision that when imposter syndrome comes in, that I have a plan in place. Making a decision when that negative self-talk comes into play, that I can interrupt it,
Oh,
whether it's positive affirmation saying, I am bold, I am confident, I am fearless, I am able, I have abundance, I have amazing resources, which includes time, talent, and my community. So I really believe making that decision. But once you make a decision, when these things come into play, when fear, anxiety, and all these things come in, and trust me, they will, have
right.
a plan in place. Sometimes I text some of my team members, my internal team members, and I said, okay, this is a 911. I'm playing in my head again. And
You
that's
know what?
really what I say.
That's great.
And Michael, you see me talk to Michael Sakai all the time on Twitter. And she has been an
Amazing.
amazing resource for Lead Loudly and for me personally. Even with her entrepreneurship archetype, because I really thought that I was one archetype, but after taking the assessment, I discovered that I was something totally different. And when I started playing, for lack of a better word, in that archetype and taking it seriously, the Lead Loudly brand continued to really catch fire because I was showing up differently. I was showing up the way I was supposed to show up, as of thinking about, oh, I need to do this, or oh, I need to do that. But that helped me really stay focused, and be on brand, and learning what to stop doing. We also think about, a lot of times, we need to do this, we need to do that, but also think about, what do you need to stop doing that's going to get you to the next level.
What did you stop doing when you learned how to get laser focused on your brand, what did you stop doing?
I stopped thinking that I had to be the person to execute it, that I had to be the person to facilitate it, that I had to be the one to come up with the idea.
So who does? Because you are a solopreneur,
Yes,
correct? Or I mean,
yes,
you've got supporting actors behind you,
yes.
but it's
Internal and
really
external,
you.
yes. Mhm,
So
mhm.
how who does facilitate the ideas then for you?
It really depends on what I'm thinking about as far as what's next, and I'm grateful that my supporting actors, as you call them, that they will say a lot of times, "You need to think about this." For example, when I was thinking about going to Twitter Spaces, Troy Sanders said to me, "You need to do a clean cut from your Twitter chat into your Twitter Spaces." And
Mm.
I have to be honest, I did drag my feet for about 6 months, and I played in my head saying, "Oh, well, what about the everybody that shows up to the Twitter chat?" And I finally just said, "Forget it. We're ripping the Band-Aid off, and this is how we're gonna go forward." Even the Lead Louder Twitter space itself, one day, Madeline Sklar jumped into my Twitter DM,
Did she really?
and she
I
said,
follow
"You
her. I
need."
like her.
Absolutely. She said to me, "You need to create a Twitter chat around Lead Loudly." And I said, "What? I need to do what?"
Right,
And
so now what do
so,
you do with that? Because one says you need to do the Twitter space.
but this was before I launched the Twitter chat, and
Oh, okay, okay.
then we pivot just July into the Twitter Spaces.
Okay.
Yes. Mhm.
Alright. So she
So,
said that earlier.
yes, she said that earlier, so that's how the Lead Loudly Twitter chat began. And I told her if she was serious about it, I said, "You need to be my first guest." And she was.
That is awesome. I didn't realize that. I don't think I ever
Yes.
knew
And
that. And
so
maybe
this
that's
week
why I
on
follow her. It might be
Thursday,
because of you.
yes, this week on Thursday, I will be her guest talking about digital leadership on
At
the
what
Twitter
time?
Smarter at 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. Eastern.
I'm gonna put that in
And I
my
will be
calendar.
Madeline's guest on the Twitter Smarter Twitter chat discussing digital leadership. And
Oh my
shout out to
goodness.
her. She just reached 100,000 followers on Twitter this weekend.
I saw that. I saw
Yes.
that. That is awesome.
Hmm.
She's really been working that, and I don't
Yes.
know her personally. I've never spoke to her. I've retweeted her tweets, and I've
Right.
hopped in on her spaces and chats, and I think she's awesome. I think she has a ton of value as well as you, but you know, that's exciting. 100,000
Yes.
followers is always
Hmm.
exciting.
Exactly. Exactly. But for me personally, and also some of my clients that I coach, is stepping back. Yes, as the leader, the entrepreneur, the solopreneur, you may be the face and the brand of the business, and you are, whether you work for someone else or you are doing a hybrid of different things, but
Yeah.
allowing others to inviting others to come into your space that you have a no lack and trust factor with, and inviting them to share their ideas and inviting them to help you, because in return you're going to do the same, and that's true community.
I love that because you're right. I have a group too, and I really never thought about it, but there is that group that do the same thing that I do and that
Hmm.
I can reach out to and share ideas,
Sure.
and it's not that competitive. And they do the same thing. It doesn't feel like, "Oh, I can't share this because they might steal that idea." Like,
Right.
the thought with this particular group never enters my mind. But
Hmm.
sometimes when I have a new idea, I am cautious about who I share it with because I've been burned by that before. But so I think
And
having that circle of people
right.
that you trust that get you, that get your brand, that lift you up. and that
Yes.
not only that you trust as a person, but you have to trust their knowledge too and what level they are at,
Mhm.
because and you're smiling, right? So
Mhm.
you want, in my opinion, right? I want people who I see doing more than me that are like killing it.
Mhm.
And have you ever had to leave someone behind because they weren't going where you were going in that
Consistently.
circle? In that circle.
Consistently.
Do you
Consistently.
really?
Yes, because once again, as I said, thinking about what you need to stop doing, and that means relationships as well. Because there's some relationships that you will have for a lifetime, others will come and go, and that's okay. And you
Yeah,
really
that's
have to
hard.
take it really is, but you have to still realize that, okay, I'm the face of this brand, I'm the face of this business, I'm the face of this career, and I'm responsible for my message that I'm delivering for my audience, and my community. And I'm responsible for being my best self.
That's so true. Now, earlier you had shared that sometimes it's scary, like pushing yourself outside of that
Mhm.
comfort zone. And I
Yes.
can't remember the words that you said now because you've shared so many ahas with me.
Oh,
But
thank
when
you.
you are reaching a new level,
Mhm.
you change and you have to think differently and it's scary. How do you keep pushing? Cuz I know I there's that feeling you get, right? When you're coming up
Yes.
and you hit a new level, and just I'm going to let you describe, what is that like when you know, like, okay, something new's around the corner and I need to push a little bit more. Like, how do you feel and how do you do that?
For me, it's saying or feeling, okay, I'm bored. I feel like
Oh.
that, okay, I've done enough in this space and I'm really not challenging myself. So I'm feeling a little too comfortable.
Mm.
How can I inspire others to lead loudly, to be bold, confident, and fearless? And I am, for lack of a better word, hiding.
Right.
And so, I will say to my counterparts and I will say to my friends on Twitter and Instagram and every place else, and looking at those women and men, that I admire, that you said that I feel that are crushing it, and in different industries who are crushing it. I look at women who are the first in the industry to do XYZ and whatever it is, and saying, okay, how do you mirror and mentor what you're doing for the next generation of young leaders?
Mm.
And I think for me personally, it's about asking questions and asking those courageous questions that I feel like that we don't talk about or we don't want to talk about. A couple of months ago, I had an opportunity to do my first closing keynote since COVID. And I remember some of my counterparts were saying, oh, well, it's afternoon time after the workshops, and now we have to go network so we can get clients. And they were like, aren't you going to network and talk to people so you can get clients? And I'm like, no. And they're like, what do you mean, no? I said, I'm going to hang out with the participants. I said, I don't do that anymore. And I said, because based upon, my archetype and what I should be doing, that's not what I should be doing. But let me tell you, Deanna, imposter syndrome set in, and I'm like, yes, that's what I should be doing. And I'm like, nope, that's not where your focus is. That's not what you need to deliver. That's not how you're supposed to show up.
And that's hard to do when you're used
Yes,
to
ma'am.
doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to pick your brain, right? And
Sure.
so I recently got an email from somebody, a potential client,
Right.
and my gut is like, yes, I can do the work, but I'm not there anymore. I'm not there anymore, and although I can, I don't really want to. I've reached a point in my business, and I don't wanna make this sound to anybody listening that I am not grateful for every opportunity, because I
No,
am
not at all.
grateful for every opportunity, but I've reached this point in my business where I don't need to work with everybody,
Yes.
and it's nothing personal against that particular person, but things look different. So,
Right.
have you felt that before? And what do you do when you feel that? And is it wrong? Because it feels like it's wrong. It feels like internally, I feel like you should take every opportunity. You should work with everybody,
Mm,
because now it seems like you're ungrateful for opportunities, but I'm not. But
right.
yeah, so talk to me. How would you handle that? What would you tell yourself if you were going through this too?
I am grateful for, my coach and mentor, Michael Sakai, again, because that was one of the things that I worked with her on, and talking about, okay, who is my dream client? So if I am working with someone who's not my dream client, that is keeping me from working with my dream client. So I don't
Mm.
say no, Deanna. I just said, you know what? I'm not the right fit, but I know who is. Let me introduce you to XYZ. She is a powerhouse, and she'd be more than happy and more than capable to deliver this service with excellence.
I like that. I like that. And what I like that you said also is that working with someone who's not the right fit or is
Yes.
no longer your ideal client is
Hmm.
blocking the ideal client. You're
Yes.
closing the door to them because you're staying small, and you're
Right.
still working in that small space where
Hmm.
you're not allowing the bigger stuff to enter your life.
Yes.
I
And
love
it is
that.
so critical to show up the way that you want to be perceived.
I think that's a quote right there, because
Thank you.
it really is important, and I love
Hmm.
that you just shared that, because that's how we need to show up all the time.
Yes,
And
and we outgrow things and projects and as well as people every day, and it's okay. We are
mhm.
designed to create. We are designed to grow. We're designed to go forward. We're not designed to be in the same space that we were last year, last week, last month.
But I love it, and, here's what I'm thinking, right? And, of course, like, I'm pretty transparent, so you get what you get, right? I'm like
Yes, absolutely.
so what you said is, like, yes, about closing the door, and right before I met my husband, I had a
Mhm.
conversation with a friend, and I would stay in dating relationships because it was somebody there, even though I knew that the person wasn't that great. Um,
Right.
but it's like, well, there's somebody, they're there and whatever. And
Mhm.
then I had read about or heard, I don't remember how it came to me, but it was exactly what you said, that when you stay in one area, then you don't open the door for what you really want.
Yes.
And in the dating scene, that's when I made the decision. I'm like, okay, I'm going to close the door on this,
Right.
because I'm going to stay single, and I know what I really want. And I actually wrote
Exactly.
down what I really wanted, and I wrote a
Fantastic.
checklist. And then when I met my husband, he was every single thing on what I wrote down. And you're saying the same thing in business. And it's like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Like, what do you want? What do
Yes,
you want?
yes.
What is your big picture? And write it and
Right.
claim it and own it and close the door on what no longer serves you.
Yes, and continue to talk about it over and over and over and over again, and find that community and those friends and advisors and all those people around you that's going to help you fan those flames.
Yes, I love it. I
Mhm.
love it. Yeah. Now I'm like motivated.
Yes,
Like,
let's go
I'm
out and
always
conquer.
motivated. But no, but that's a word right there. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a word. If you get nothing, I mean, there are a lot of really good pieces that you dropped off and aha
Thank
moments
you.
that I had throughout. But right there, that is like the golden key to stop playing small in life and in business and
Absolutely.
and to own what you want. Take control of your life, take control of your business and
Mhm.
claim it and own it. And that's exactly how you do it, is just what you just explained to us. So, gosh, what a great note to end on. I
Oh, thank you.
absolutely love that. I love that. How can we find you, Nathalie? Like how can we find you if we want to work with you and we want you to help us become leaders? What do we do?
Thank you so much for asking. I am Nathalie Gregg on all platforms. You can reach out to me at nathaliegregg.com. You can DM me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Those are all the places that I hang out. I'm exploring TikTok because I really want to move forward in that area and challenge my mindset and be able to teach leadership, branding, and also entrepreneurship through the TikTok series. So that's one of the pieces that I am a little bit apprehensive about, but we're going to go out there and make it happen.
You are going to do it and you're going to kill it because I know you.
Thank
I know
you.
you. You're going to do
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you.
You are welcome. All of the links that Nathalie just shared will be in the notes, and you
Yes.
can click on any of those links and reach out to her immediately. I encourage you to join her Twitter space. It's Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and it is hashtag lead loudly, and that will
Mhm.
also be below in the comments and the Twitter note, or in the not Twitter notes, in the show notes. And hop on. She has great information that she's always sharing. Nathalie, thank you so much for joining
Thank
me
you.
today. I am so glad
Absolutely.
that we connected. I always love talking to you. And just thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being an incredible woman that all of us can be inspired and motivated to do what's next for us so that we can stop the chaos.
Ah, that's right. That's right. We've got to talk about that too. All right.
Exactly. That was
Okay, everybody.
intentional, Deanna.
I guess I know. I picked up on it. I caught what you were dropping there. So, all right,
Mhm.
everybody. We will see you next Tuesday. Thanks for
Thank
joining in.
you.